You know, I've got some good news for all of us, including myself, but also for you, because I can see that our next speaker is still sitting right here. And you might think, well, that's normal. He's supposed to be here. But he actually told me, Peter, if you are too rough on Cynthia, I will run away and I will no longer be here. So I think we did a good job so far, both myself and all of you who asked the question, because Bjarne is still here and he's our next guest. Bjarne, I'm going to do an effort at not butchering your name, but I think I might still butcher your name. Bjarne Lykke Sørensen, more or less okay. Bjarne is, as you might guess, he comes from Denmark. He is also in Denmark today, the CEO of Siemens. Now, Siemens is actually a company that's based here, right here in Bavaria. It's top people, the global CEO, the executive team are all based in Munich. And Bjarne, you know, he loves his company, absolutely amazing company, but he also loves his country, because he told me Siemens is the biggest company, you know, in all of Bavaria. It is the biggest global company in this part or in this region. It's the second biggest global company from Germany, but in Denmark, we actually still have bigger companies than that. So we're going to hear all about, about Siemens and about Bjarne. I want to welcome our second speaker, Bjarne Lykke Sørensen, on the stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the introduction.
That's a good way to get started. Bjarne, if you want to take a seat, you may. If you want to keep standing, we can also stand.
Oh, okay. It's okay.
We'll take a seat.
Here, yes. And then first of all, thank you for the invitation, because some of the most enjoyable thing about having my job here is when you have a chance to interact with students, you know. And so I'm so excited about this. And
yeah, and we're going to, of course, have a lot of time with you, and we'll also have a lot of time with you afterwards. I think you'll stay with us for the reception, so we'll make sure to ask you all the questions we can now, and then we'll keep the others for later. Bjarne, I want to start with just an introduction to Siemens, because, you know, I think I may not have done it full justice in describing Siemens. Siemens is this huge company. It's an enormous industrial conglomerate. And, you know, I might date myself now, but I actually know Siemens from its mobile phones and its computers. Now, by the looks on people's faces, I can tell that a lot of people will be like, what are you talking about? We don't know Siemens from mobile phones and computers, because I don't think that you actually still make PCs and mobile phones. So tell us a little bit about what it is that Siemens is, and maybe start with the products or services that people that are young today would know, rather than people that are clearly a little bit too old already.
Thanks, Peter, and it'll take some time. So no, you're actually right that we are not there anymore, and let me explain what Siemens is actually doing. And we have different businesses. And let us start with the businesses that is smart infrastructure. And smart infrastructure is that, you know, building management system, which is controlling a building, the heat, ventilation, air condition, but it's also about charging infrastructure for electrical cars. It could be to build the grid. So it's the infrastructure part, and that is one of the businesses. Then we have another business, Digital Industries, which is doing automation and digitalization for manufacturing. And there we actually also very well positioned. And I think I'll come a little bit back to that, talking about digitalization in this area. Then we have mobility. Mobility is a train business where we can deliver.
You make trains, right?
Trains, exactly, yes.
I think we might know Siemens from, if you look closely in a train, you might see that it's a Siemens train.
Yeah, exactly. We are big there, and it's not only the train, it's also infrastructure around it. It means that electrification, the digitalization of that part. Then we're probably also well known for the healthcare part, the health and ears, which is very much diagnostic areas like CT and MR scanners. You're totally right. See, you know a lot.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You're doing super good, Peter, until now.
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Yeah. And then also, actually, somebody also knows us for the Siemens Energy. But Siemens Energy, there is Siemens AG, our core is only a minority shareholder in Siemens Energy, but Siemens Energy is very active in the energy area, also, by the way, in wind turbines and this area.
So
then coming back
more. There's more.
And then coming back to your little thing about this, that what about this telecommunication business? I think it's so nice because it tells a lot about change. Because Siemens, in 1847, when Werner von Siemens started Siemens, it actually started with telegraph, which is telecommunication.
Oh, wow.
So you can say the beginning of the company was actually telecommunication or the telegraph
and
at that time.
And it stayed active in that field
until 20 years ago.
Oh,
until
wow.
20 years ago, Siemens totally stepped out of telecommunication, and it's actually a nice, interesting change story. We always talk about change, and you know, it doesn't matter to be big, it's a question about how fast you can change. And I think that's, and you come into an area and then you end up doing something else, yeah.
Well, I have to say, you know, it's impressive all the things you do now, you know, the trains, the buildings, the manufacturing, but if you're talking about speed of change, and you just told us that the company was founded in the 1840s. Then if my memory serves me right, it took you 160 years to get out of the telecom business. So that's, I suppose, not a quick change.
No, you don't think that, okay? Somebody agreeing with Peter?
So, yeah, so what, I mean, but on the other hand, you've been around for 180 years, which is completely incredible. So clearly, change has to be part of the DNA of the company. How do you live that? How does that translate into what you do? Is what you do today not what you're going to be doing in 5 years? Is it not what you did 5 years ago? I mean, how do you deal with all that change?
Peter, you're totally right that things are changing a lot. And I think I would say what is actually the core of what Siemens is doing, and that is combining the real and the digital world. And there the development is going super fast. And in Siemens, we actually have developed, and we launched it 2 years ago, actually here in Munich, where we had our industrial metaverse, the Siemens Industrial Metaverse. We call it Siemens Accelerator, which is an open digital business platform. And what does that actually consist about? Because all of this is, there is AI element into it, we'll come back to that. There's the digital twin, and there is software-based automation.
Okay, I gotta stop you right there, because when you use the word digital twin, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I mean, like, it sounds to me almost like when you're 5 years old and you have an imaginary friend. What is a digital twin?
Yeah, it's a good question, because let us say you want to develop a new aircraft, an airplane. And then in the old days, you know, you had to build a model of it, and you have to find out, was it good at flying or was it not good at flying, and this. Now you can do it in a Siemens software, you know, where you build your flight, you can simulate it, you can test it, you can fly with it. Then you can say, okay, is this really working? And then at the same time, you can also make a digital twin of your manufacturing, your plant where you're going to produce your aircraft in. And then you can see, okay, can I really produce this one? Can I simulate how it will be for the workers to be there so we have good working conditions? How will it actually be for the robots who shall do it? So the digital twin is, you know, this process where you are designing both your products and your manufacturing, and nearly all products today is actually made this way, where you have a digital twin.
But I mean, then I suppose it sounds to me, and again, I might again show how old I am, but then it sounds to me almost like Second Life or The Sims, you know, like these games, these computer games where you create a totally second world, really, a parallel world, in which everything that can happen in the real world can also happen there, but it's all fully online. Is that then what it is?
Yeah, yes, exactly, because let us say you have made this excellent aircraft, and then it's flying afterwards. Then you can get data back, Internet of Things, and then you can use that to update your digital twin, so you are able to produce an even better aircraft tomorrow. So you're totally right that and you can actually sometimes discuss, you know, I actually here in my pocket, I have an iPhone, and I have an Apple ID where I have a copy a digital twin of that one. And then you can sometimes start to discuss what is actually the real one. Is it the physical one, or is it the digital twin, which is the important one?
Right.
And I would say it's a digital twin that is the important one, because that's the real one, because this here is just a copy. And if I throw this one out, I buy a new one, and then I actually can re-establish it. So the digital twin is really the core of everything.
It's really where R&D happens, where the future is built. You know, I don't know, but you know, I don't know if you all read about this because you talked about aircraft. You know, the Airbus or it was the Boeing accident where sort of a plane, you know, actually didn't function as intended. Is that then the kind of things that you would be able to prevent if you used digital twin software?
Yeah, it's a good example that you are able to simulate all kind of situations and see, hey, what will happen if this happens, or this and this wind and all these things. But there's one thing more I want to add, because I said we combined the real and the digital world.
Yes.
Because I told at the beginning of this one that you design your airplane, but then you start to make, okay, I'm going to produce it. I'm going to make it real.
And then you're also going to do that.
Exactly. As 1/3 of all PLCs, which is the intelligence in a factory, programmable logic control, is made by Siemens. 1/3, 1 out of 3.
In the world?
In the world, yes. So that means that if you look into a factory, we are the one who making this digital into the real world as well.
So it means that even though we might know Siemens from when we're lying under a scan in a hospital, or we might know Siemens from looking at the brand of a train, you know, the real big businesses that Siemens has are the ones that we probably don't know about unless we operate a building, unless we work in a factory, unless we work in R&D in a huge company. Is that sound right?
Yeah, I think you're right that actually Siemens is everywhere, but it's difficult to see it because it could be the building management system, it could be in the production, it could be in this. And then, by the way, many of you probably don't know that Siemens is among the 10 biggest software companies in the world. So we're really strong in that area.
Now, you've clearly, I think, convinced many of us, at least me, that you know, what you're doing is very, very valuable in the 21st century today and going forward. Now, when I follow the media, and I do, and I think all of us do, you know, we read almost exclusively when it comes to technology nowadays, we read about AI. That's right. We read about AI, about artificial intelligence. See that, you know.
That's also super cool.
You know, how does Siemens think about AI? Does Siemens have Siemens AI? Can you tell us about that?
Yes, actually, and it was a great start. We was a little bit around this digital twin and also this PLC, because how we are using AI is actually that we, for example, creating a co-pilot. So when you're going to program your PLCs and this, then with the generative AI, you get help to program it. And I think that's really great, because that takes us another place where, you know, just 5 years ago you said there will be two kind of people in the future, the one who can do programming and the one who cannot. But now with the help of generative AI, you just tell, you know, what do you actually want, how do I want to do it, and then the programming will be done for you. So
that's what we've heard, right? Yeah. That's what the promise of generative AI is.
Exactly. It will be a great help for you. And then what I really like about it is also that in this world, we have a partnership with Microsoft, we have a partnership with Amazon AWS, and by the way, also with Sony, which is helping us in this world to creating virtual lens and this kind of stuff. So you get this connection between the digital world and the real world. And AI is helping in this one.
You keep on mentioning companies that I know from their mobile phones, by the way. Sony, Microsoft. But so this is what, you know, so you're working with AI today, obviously.
Yes, we do, yeah.
Tell us a little bit, and by the way, we're going to talk later on with Stina Riemer, who works at BCG, the consulting firm, and who works on how companies implement AI. But now we've got a great example of a company that's actually doing that.
Yeah, and then one example is actually, if somebody is having some time later today or something, is that our group CEO, which actually have an office very close here, Roland Busch, if you go into YouTube and actually say Roland Busch AI, and then he was in Las Vegas in the CES fair giving a speech about this, a very good speech where he actually explains how is Siemens actually using AI. So just a hint. If you have some time, then
Have a look.
Have a look.
Now, you mentioned early on in our conversation, I don't know if you all remember, I'm going to try to do that the big divisions are Siemens Buildings, Siemens Manufacturing, Siemens Mobility, Siemens Energy, and Siemens Health. I hope my memory still works.
Yeah, and Siemens Energy, we are only minority
Any
shareholder,
minority.
yeah.
Will AI for you be in the future another of those divisions, or will it be part of all of those divisions?
It'll be a part of all of these divisions. Because, generative AI is really one who can make it more easy for our customers to use it. This example with the co-pilot. Another example is that Siemens was having a company named Mendix, which we was buying some years ago, which is making low-code software, to making more easy to do coding. And there we also now apply AI, so it gets even more easy to do coding. So it will be helping our customers and us. So it is not like you will have some new business coming up. This is going to be applied in the businesses.
Yeah. How do you use AI? You as a person, do you use ChatGPT to prepare for your presence here? Do you use it to ask where to go on vacation, or do you have other uses for it yourself?
Yes. Actually, I use it, and in Siemens we actually have our own version of it. Because sometimes the problem is if you use ChatGPT and you ask questions, then afterwards the system is also learning. So perhaps you will also be giving it to your competition. So we actually have our own system. And
who developed it? That's also
but it's still going into the ChatGPT and this, but it's a little bit more closed environment, so to speak, because we want to be sure that we can control it. And there I often do. I had an example. I was out should meet a CEO for a big Danish company in the dairy industry, the food and beverage industry. I was thinking, I was sitting doing my presentation, then say, okay, what will actually be the answer? What is the cool stuff to talk about in this dairy and this food and bev industry? And then you ask, and you get so many interventions. Wow, okay, that's cool. How can I actually apply that?
So the discovery element of generative AI is one that you tap into yourself.
Yeah.
I want to come back one more time to this idea of change in a company, and particularly how you decide as a company. Now you said why you're playing in real life and digital twins, and why that's relevant because of digitization and automation. You've also told us how you're starting to integrate AI and why. But how do you decide as a company when it's time to change? That you have to adopt a new technology, or that maybe you have to stop doing something like eventually you did with telecom? How does that work?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think also that if you look into the history now I was telling that Siemens was not in telecommunication, but there's also other areas where we have changed our business model, and I think coming a little bit back to what we said in the beginning, that what you even as a big company, you really need to be aware all the time. Where's the technology? Are we on the right platform? And sometimes you also have to ask yourself, is then we the best owner for this, and how are we going to develop it? And it is amazing. I have been in Siemens like 30 years. So I started when I was 10 years old. And
you still had a Siemens phone then, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we had that some years. Yeah. And there I can just see, how much it's actually changing all the time, the product offerings, and especially I think it's been going very fast the last year with digitalization. Now you mentioned AI.
Yeah. Is it something that as students, as young people who start their careers, is it something that we should be excited about or scared about? That there is this constant change and that every year there's something new?
No, I think you should not be scared for it. And if you take AI as a good example, I think that I don't think that anybody in here will be substituted by AI. But if you don't use AI, you have a risk to be substituted with somebody who uses AI.
Right.
And I think that puts it a little bit into it. And I also think now I mentioned the example that 5 years ago we were talking about that we end in a world where somebody can do programming, somebody cannot do programming. And now suddenly with the generative AI, we can democratize that. So everybody, if you tell what you want, you can actually do the programming. So there's many good...
And we can adapt to it as we build our careers. That's also encouraging for me, by the way. By now you've understood that I'm sometimes stuck in the past. I maybe want to ask a question to the audience, just to see actually how often that we here as a collective, that we actually are already using generative AI. So I might just ask, and then I want to ask you some personal questions, Bjarne. I might just ask, I'll give you 4 options, okay? Whether you use generative AI like ChatGPT, DALL-E, and other programs, whether you use it almost every day, whether you would use it about once a week, about once a month, or almost never, okay? So let's just see, and by the way, you can participate, Bjarne. So, you know, we're gonna put our hands up. Who uses generative AI applications almost every day? Okay, that's about a quarter. Who uses it? You're one of them, I'm gonna ask you about that. Who uses it about once a week or so? About the same number, I would say. Mm-hmm. Who uses it, you know, about every month, you know, every couple of months? That would be me, okay? So thank you guys, I'm not alone. And who almost never uses it? Almost no one. One person in the back there, I'm curious if you want to tell us about that. How's life there?
But by the way, it's super difficult not to use it, because you know it's getting built into all your software products. You know, if you use Microsoft or other, then it's in there. You know, and it's all over. I wanna maybe just ask one person in the room before we get to the part 2 of our conversation, Bjarne. A person that says that they use it almost every day. If you can just share with us what you do with AI. We've got a person right there. If we can bring the mic over here. Yeah.
Nice, okay. And once we hear who you are, we're going to clap for you, but we first got to find out, of course.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Valery Weber. I'm a student of UBS in the bachelor degree, and I use AI every day, and actually I program it myself, so I use different types of AI. One is the ChatGPT that I use for some code creation, and also I use AI for creating images. And yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Now I gotta say, I gotta say I clap, but I'm also now really afraid, okay? Because if the one person that we pick is somebody who actually programs AI, then I'm even more stressed about my own future because I barely even use it, let alone how to program it. So maybe one more person. Let's hear one more person. Anyone who just wants to share how they use AI over there. Just we'll bring the mic over to you. And I'm praying to the gods that it's something like I can identify with.
My name is Jana. I'm studying information systems at this university.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of the technical programs at this university. And I'm working with AI, especially with ChatGPT, and my company where I'm working, I'm doing software engineering. And we have our own AI. So I cannot share all the stuff we are doing with it, but yeah, it helps in coding a lot. Also, it helps in making some documentation, translation, and requirements for programmers. So it's really interesting. Yeah, but I think that's a great opportunity for us, but I feel like we need more policies in...
More, sorry, what?
Policies in the usage. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it didn't help me, but I suppose, you know, we just know that this is a future-ready group. What do you use AI for? When you said every day almost you use it. You talked about one example, but what do you use?
Yeah, so one example was this, when I have to meet with customers or people, you know, I want to have this feedback, because sometimes you have your own ideas and then you get ChatGPT like answer on it. And then I must also say, we talked about it earlier today, that a lot of this with the language thing, we actually already use generative AI probably every day, all of us, when we ask, hey, how is that actually working, and how is that in a foreign language? Because a lot of them is also today controlled by generative AI.
That's amazing. I do want to say though, and I'm going to claim that you were a little bit like me, because you guys can't see it probably from afar, but I can. You're actually wearing an 80s watch from Casio or something like that. So, so there is clearly some room for traditional things, I suppose. Bjarne, let me ask you a few personal questions now. You said that you've been with Siemens for a long time and clearly a very successful career, but how did you choose your career, and how did you choose Siemens ultimately?
That's really a good question. Have somebody in here heard about existentialism? Sartre from French, there's some hands there. Kierkegaard from Denmark, perhaps also. It's this thinking that you can understand your life backwards, but the problem is all of us have to live it forwards.
Right.
And that all our life is actually, every day we take some choices, and then we say, okay, shall we go this way or this way? And our life is actually this big choices we do every day, which actually in the end of the day will create our life. And and by the way, the thinking in this existentialism is that when you have taken one choice, then this choice will never come back. It's new choices you'll get afterwards. So it means that if you choose to go to one company instead of another company, then these choices will then be different.
Sliding doors and you'll never know.
Exactly. And by the way, the problem about that is also a little bit tough, because the philosophy in existentialism is also that we actually create our own lives.
Right.
And that's a big responsibility to have. And when I think back, and when I went to high school many years ago, I was reading Kierkegaard and existentialism, and you get a little bit scared when you look into your life. And now when you look back and ask yourself, why did you end there? Then it's actually easy to see it. When I finished university, I was studying in Aarhus University, actually also a business school in Denmark. And then I went into Shell, the oil company, and worked there for some years. And then I got super interesting in IT and building databases. A little bit boring actually, but
you've got some people here who are clearly
that is great to have somebody. I was really getting into making databases, and then there was a position in Siemens where we should build databases actually in customer relationship management some years ago, where we wanted to come closer and have more control over what actually was the customer demands. And for me it was like, yeah, I love that, because it's my IT with building databases, SQL-based, and then at the same time work with customers.
Right.
And that was where I started, and then I have done a million things.
A million things. I mean, it sounds, though, like, as you said, that sometimes you make choices just knowing who you are and what you want to do today. You said your start at Siemens was just a particular opportunity that you were particularly interested in at that time. In no way could you predict all of the things that followed afterwards, let alone that you would one day be CEO of the company in your own country.
No. And if you look back on it again, you can say that I worked here in Germany actually 4 years. Enjoyed it very much, and there you could also say you could also go the other direction. I choose to go back to Denmark and continue my career there. Something else could also have happened. And then actually, Peter, we had a good talk, because we was sharing a taxi here from the airport.
With Cynthia also.
Exactly, with Cynthia.
Cynthia actually was 10 minutes behind us. That's right. We were here
we were missing her. Yeah.
With your former colleague.
Exactly, yes. And there we actually had this talk about, what actually do that you end where you end, and what is these choices you have got. And I think one of the most important is, if you are in a company, then sometimes you feel yourself you're ready to change. And then you need to have that the company also have an opportunity for that. So you have to somehow to have that over a period of time, that when you are ready, then the company is also ready. And that have to happen several times.
Right, and otherwise you would, of course, leave.
Probably, yes, exactly. Yeah. So that is why I stayed 30 years, because there was this match, and in other cases it could. By the way, I started in Shell and was there 7 years, and then some point in time there was something else. So
yeah, and so in another parallel world, in a digital twin world, maybe you would have stayed at Shell.
Then perhaps I could have simulated my life in Shell. How cool would that be? You make a digital twin of you guys, and then you can simulate,
See what would have happened. But I think you chose the right one, because today people are clearly more excited about digitization, automation, artificial intelligence than about oil and gas. So in that sense, it worked out. But I guess you couldn't know that in advance, because when you started out, there was no problem working in the oil and gas sector. It was an exciting opportunity. This was the biggest company, or among the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah. And by the way, they still are.
Right.
They still are, and but you're right about that. I think now we have not talked so much about sustainability and the green transformation, where we in Siemens is playing a huge role. Actually, when I started in Shell in the beginning of the 90s, there was already coming the first report. I think it was Gro Brundtland who was sending out the report in '89 or something about that.
I mean, I got to tell you, I know what you're talking about, but if people didn't know about Siemens phones, they're not going to know about this report. But so it's the United Nations. Does anyone know? In '92, am I right?
I think that Gro Brundtland is 88
or even
89.
earlier.
Yeah. Where you get the first report that we have a problem about raising temperatures because of too much CO2 emission.
And it was, and to be clear, you were at that time, you were at Shell? Or
no,
you
I was not there yet. I was not there yet.
So, but at that time, can you imagine this? At that time, in '89, the idea that oil and gas
was a problem
was groundbreaking. In other words, at any time before that, people didn't really have a clue about that.
Spot on.
So it just goes to show that over the course of your life, you have seen the change in our knowledge, and then of course our actions on sustainability.
Yeah, and it's interesting, also a little bit scary actually, that we sit here now 35 years later, and we have still not done as much as we should do. And that is, we in societies and in companies really have to speed up. But it is actually pretty old knowledge that there was a problem.
I know that Siemens does things on that too, but I guess we'll talk about that another time. I want to, now that we have still the time with you, and we're going to get to student questions in a little bit, I want to ask you about this very remarkable thing that you also shared, which is that if we were in this room when you were a student, that actually we would have been in the room with not just you as CEO of Siemens Denmark, but also with the chairman of Siemens, with the former CEO of SAP, with the former CEO of Maersk, which is a very large shipping company.
Not him, no.
And well, Jim was also the chairman.
Yeah, Jim. Yeah, it's right. You're right about that. You're right about that.
Same person.
Yeah. He was the chairman also. Yeah.
And the CEO of Novo Nordisk, which is the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. Which is to say that when you were a student, in your class, there were several people like you. It was not just you. There was also a CEO of another big global company. There was a chairman of a big global company. That sounds amazing, that at that time, you had so many future leaders. Did you know that? Did you feel like you were part of a special generation, or were you all just doing what we all do, which is to say, you know, we come to a conference every once in a while, but probably we also go have a beer and have a good time?
Yeah, it is such a good question, and we ended up talking about that because it comes a little bit back to this. Can you actually see when you're young sitting here, you know, who will actually develop into being a CEO? And it's correct. As I said, I was from Aarhus University. I have a Master of Science in Economics and Business Administration, and at that time where I actually also graduated, at the same year, you know, we had this, the CEO for Novo Nordisk, which is, by the way, the biggest company in Europe, with
incredible,
incredible, yes. And then also Jim Hammond. And by the way, Jim was actually there if you had a problem with your IT. You could go down to him because he was actually one of the guys that was hired by the university to help the other guys if there was a problem with it. So he was there, yeah. And then you can say it's pretty amazing out of such a year. And then there's other universities in Denmark than Aarhus University. So but I was honestly, I think we also talked about it. I think it's super difficult to know what who is actually the one,
and how,
and how is it, and there's probably, I think if I look into my own career, I would say there is also this element of chance in it, you know, like coming back to Kierkegaard, that you make so many choices, and I would guess if you take anybody who have done a career, you know, there's this, you could have gone this way, and this, and if you have done that, you have not been there, but perhaps you have been in another place you don't know.
Yeah. Now, we also talked about this idea because you've, of course, accomplished a lot and gotten far in your career. Now you mentioned the aspect of luck, right? Which obviously luck is something that happens to us without us being able to affect it.
Yeah, yeah.
But you also talked about some other aspects. And you said one of the things, if you think about what is it that we have in common with the people that actually succeeded, you said it's determination, it's grit, it's sort of, always going for it. Could you tell us a little bit more about that aspect, how you have that and how you see that in others?
Yeah, we had the talk also there, it's of course good to be smart, but probably drive and to be persistent is probably the most thing you really need, because as I think everybody who have worked sometimes thinks it's really annoying day, everything goes against you, and your boss is perhaps saying you're not doing good, or the customers don't want to buy, or the production is not working, and you have these days where nothing is working, and you come home in the evening and think, I must be such an idiot, because things are not really working out here,
Right.
And there you have to kind of be persistent and say, okay, tomorrow I will go and try, and then I start to solve this, and I will solve this, and I will solve this. And that is probably this, that you don't say, okay, I give up and then apply for a new job, perhaps I can find a new one. So you probably have to have that also when things is annoying or difficult, that you just keep fighting and take it step by step. And then also, it seems a little bit crazy, but sometimes we also ask our customers what is the most important for them when we have contact with them. And our customers come back and say, that is that when we is going to you guys, then we're getting an answer.
Right.
That
If
you're
you
reacting.
give a problem, you will provide a solution.
Yes, simply that you're reacting. And that's an interesting thing, because think of that interview, you have a career, that you're actually a little bit, onto it, and you're reacting on it. And
I think it was the, now mixed reputation person, Woody Allen, the producer of movies, who said success, 80% of success, he said, is showing up.
Yeah.
That's a lot, 80%. But you say, in terms of dealing with customers,
It's exactly the same, yeah.
it is like that.
Yeah. As you would say in Germany, erreichbar, that you come in contact with you and you are reacting and this.
You're available.
Available and this, and I think that's a big part of it. But you have been writing a book about this before I was a CEO, so so if you can go to him in the break, and then he
They
can
may
tell
have
you.
heard too
Then
much
he
of me
can tell you how you're going to be a CEO. So
They've heard too much from me already, but one aspect, a final aspect I'll ask you about, and that we also discussed with Cynthia, is this idea of going abroad, of having an international career. I've seen that indeed, that most of the people who ultimately achieve success, that at a quite early stage in their career, they go abroad. They get out of their comfort zone. Could you tell us a little bit about that part of your career? Because you said you went to work for Shell. Now, of course, you're back in Denmark, but for a while you were in the UK and Germany. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I would say that I had some time here in Germany, and I also speak some German. I think it was super interesting, because even Denmark and Germany is super close, neighboring countries. There is still a cultural difference. I don't know, have somebody been reading Hofstede in here?
Oh, so Hofstede?
Hofstede.
Oh,
there is some around, yes.
Nice, yeah,
Also,
nice.
and we talked about it,
So it's an author who writes about
cultural difference, yes. And he always said that national culture is actually super strong. It's not a thing with change all the time. Yeah. And just coming from Denmark to Germany, there's also some difference in it. For example, there's a bigger power distance in Germany.
Right.
In Denmark there is zero power distance. You can be a manager or a CEO, and if you tell your employees something, they'll look on you, and then you say, you have to convince me. You have to.
In Denmark, I can call you Bjarne.
Yeah.
In Germany, I would probably have to call you Dr. Lykke Sørensen.
Yes, and then I think we have to say that things are also moving fast here in Germany, But when I came here, by the way, nearly 20 years ago, I was a little bit surprised about this power distance things. For example, my boss clearly said to me sometimes, yelling at me and saying, Bjarne, you are not doing that good, and I was really not used to that.
Right.
And that's just an example.
That would be possible, that somebody could tell you just because they're your boss, you're not doing a good enough job, and you have to just accept it.
Yeah, and it could be they were right, but I was still a little bit offended because in my culture it will be a little bit like...
It will be more collaborative.
We can sit and talk about it, but I think that, by the way, they have changed a lot in Germany. That is my feeling.
It is
about
changing quickly.
But the interesting learning about this is also that you learn a lot about your own culture by being it. And now going from Germany to Denmark is not super big, because if we then went to China or to Indonesia or some other places, the cultural difference is super big. So the cultural difference between Denmark and Germany is probably close to zero. If you take compared to if you took it in. Or I was also at a university studying in the US, and the cultural difference from Denmark to US is also much bigger than it is from Denmark to Germany.
I think a lot of people here in the room already experienced that and have overcome these cultural differences, because many people here actually come from countries that are very far away from Germany. One final question, and I want to get to questions. So if you have questions, think about them, and we're going to get to you after this final question. Bjarne, just if you had to give one piece of advice, people starting out today that want to succeed in their careers, what would it be?
Yeah. Coming a little bit back to this, that you know, you have so many choices, and the choices, the sum of the choices is then making your life. The existentialism thinking is that first of all, it's probably difficult to have a long plan, because you don't know what choices you will get if you make a choice now, and that makes it a little bit complicated. Personally, when I was coming out, I was thinking, it will be great. I will come out, and hopefully I'll get some okay salary and this, and it was definitely not. I think my career have went further than I actually have seen it done. But you know, the opportunity arose, and you got a little bit more interested in it. So I would say that everybody, everybody perhaps thinks that you should have a career plan. I'm not sure you should have a career plan. You should do what you like and what you think you are good at, and then see where's the opportunities in that. And then, by the way, Peter, we had a super interesting discussion when we was driving here, because I have been in Siemens, you know, many years, and somebody would say, I'm teaching in CBS and in Aarhus University in Aarhus there, and they also say, 30 years in the same company, you must be mad,
Right.
How boring is that? But it's a question about, you'll still change your job every 3 years or 4 years, and then you will get new. And of course, I think perhaps many of you will say, okay, my career will be that I will be 3 years there, and 4 years there, and 5 years there, and
1 year there.
And 1 year there, perhaps even if you run into a bad boss, because you all know that you are hired in a company, but you leave because the boss is terrible.
Right. But so it's something that, don't make a long-term plan. You ended up 30 years at Siemens, but you could have had many moments where you would have followed another opportunity because it fit at that time better with your interest, your capability, what society needed. I think that's that concept of ikigai that they often talk about. Yeah. Where do all those things converge? I want to get the questions now, but first already, thank you for this first part of the conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, and if you have questions, raise your hands. Yep, I'm going to take somebody over there, and also the lady over here, I think, in the middle. And you can tell us your name and perhaps what you're studying or where you're from, and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Lana. I'm from Latvia and I study finance. And my question is about innovations, because it is undeniable that they will continue to conquer our society. And is there any specific or unexpected field that will not only benefit from either innovation or digitalization or automation, but also change us as society, our habits, our beliefs? And if you're allowed to tell, does Siemens has something in forecasts that is not AI? Because AI seems already kind of normal and expected.
Oh, wow. You see, thank you. That's a great question. That's a great question. We're already outdated. AI is like the Siemens phone of the 2024.
I think, you know, it's a super good question. It's a little bit because what is the next big thing? And if I knew what the next big thing is, I was sitting up in my room here, and then I would buy some stocks in the company who had the next big things. We hope it's Siemens. I actually think that generative AI, you know, the interesting thing about is that we say it's pretty new, but we had machine learning 25 years ago, which actually a little bit the same as AI. The new stuff is probably the generative AI and a lot of the language thing which came, you know, 1.5 years ago with ChatGPT and this stuff. And I must say honestly that I think that will be pretty big. It will change the way we work. I've been reading that somebody say that 40% of all jobs worldwide will change because of generative AI. So if I should say, what is the next big thing, I will probably say that I think the next big thing probably is generative AI, because it will change all of us how we are working, and it also give a lot of new opportunities. It will probably also end up creating new jobs, and then run some, but also take some jobs away. But it will also creating new jobs. So that would be a little bit. I think that there's still a lot of potential to take out. Just now, I think you said you were studying finance, wasn't it correct? Understood, yeah. And I think in this finance area, it will be super big, where there's a lot of opportunity in the way we are handling our finance.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And then I think we're going to have a question over there. Thank you. If we can get the microphone. Yeah, over there. I think there were two people next to each other. Why don't you both ask your question? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is RP. I'm doing my master's in marketing. Well, we've talked about technology and AI and how so many companies have access to so many tools and resources these days. And having that in mind, when we think about competitive landscape, it has shifted and changed in so many ways than how it was years ago. And originality has become a major issue for so many fields and companies. And my question would follow, how does Siemens differentiate itself from competitors in terms of technology, quality, and customer experience? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Being really grilled here, eh?
But that's also really interesting, because you can say there's a global competition, and even Siemens is a big company in market cap, and then we still have a lot of big competitors around the world, and how do we make sure to stay relevant? And there's one part of it, we need to make sure that our product system and software and solution is really on the top of it. But there's another thing into it which is a little bit interesting also, is that we also think of ecosystem and partners. I mentioned in the beginning that for example, some of the big tech companies like Microsoft and AWS, they are partners in this ecosystem about developing new. So I think that if you should stay competitive as a Siemens, you need to accept we cannot do everything ourselves. We need to have great partners and partnering up with them, and then together we are more than 1 + 1. There comes additional value out of. And I mentioned Siemens Accelerator, this industrial metaverse. It's an open digital business platform where actually we invite our partners in, and a partner in this case could also be a competitors, because it could be that we together can create additional value for our customers. And in the end of the day, the one who will win and still be here is the one who can create value for customers.
Yeah, and so well, thank you. This made us all silent, but I think it's still a good answer. So thank you for that answer. This idea that as companies you're not only competitors, but you also collaborate to succeed in the future. Was there another question over there? Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, good morning, day, whatever it is. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Nikolai Nazarov. I'm finishing my bachelor's in the EUBS. I'm also a co-owner of a green energy company that specializes in recycling through the process of pyrolysis since you mentioned the energy sector and Siemens is participating in it, how would you approach the task of creating or finding partners who would be interested in a joint venture or any other form of partnership? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so regarding this, the green transformation, it's right that Siemens have a minority shareholder in Siemens Energy, which is working a lot in that area also, for example, with the wind turbines and this part. But Siemens also in the core business is having a lot of activities which work with the green transformation. I was mentioning that if we have more wind turbines and renewable energy into it, we really need to have a better grid system, and that more or less applies for all countries around the world and to strengthen the grid system. And then also, when we talk about digitalization, I think also that can help a lot in the green transformation. Because if we can do things more effective with the digitalization, we can also be much more effective, and then we can reduce our consumption of electricity, and at the same time we can find ways to produce it without using so much emission. Then I think you asked a little bit about partners in that area also, because exactly the same applies here. That I think we as a society, as a company, Siemens have a big task in front of us, because we really have to work to solve this climate crisis we are in. We need to stop our CO2 emission, and I really mean stop, because we have to get it down and to zero pretty fast. And for that one, we need everybody on board. So companies have to work together, and societies have to work together to find smart solutions. Because it's also not just a question about that we shall not use fossil fuels, because we also have to think about that in many countries in the world, you have not yet had this uprising like we have had, for example, in the Western countries. So many people there will say, okay, we also want to enter into the middle class, and that will give more CO2 emission, unless that we find partners and solutions where we can produce cheap energy without making CO2 emission out of it.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm trying to get a look at our producers to see if we have time for one more question from the audience. I know we're very close to our break. Is there one more question from the audience that we need to address over there? Yeah. And then I've got a bonus question for you.
How lucky can you be?
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today. My name is Alexander. I'm coming from France, and I'm currently part of a program that will allow me to go in Sweden and in the US. So in 2 years, I will have 2 bachelors, one from France in Sweden also, and a master's from the United States.
Wow.
So I was reading today, thanks to ChatGPT.
No, it's amazing. I mean, I'm very jealous.
I was reading today that Siemens made a deal with the Deutsche Bahn to sell like 43 trains for 1.5 billion. So this was great, and I think this is a great opportunity. So as I will do the same today, is Siemens taking internships? Maybe for French people, you know.
We already know that you have a bachelor degree from 3 countries, and now, of course, the question is very good.
By the way, cool, you're going to Sweden, you know, that is our neighboring country with Denmark, and we share a lot. Yes, there is a lot of internships, and they can all be found in our Siemens jobs. Come and there, you know, it will really be great, because it's really important for us, because internships is great for the students, but it's also super great for Siemens. And if you are pointing in direction of Sweden, we also do it there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. You see, we're hands-on here. We're hands-on. It's amazing to learn, but we want to apply it.
Yeah.
You see?
You can also get an internship.
No, I would only work on the defunct functions of Siemens. I would want to work on the phone division. It doesn't exist anymore. You know, we're out of time, but I just want to, the bonus question is actually because you are here today, and I want people to know this, because of Joanne.
Yes.
Joanne, are you in the room still, or are you somewhere? There you are.
Yeah,
Joanne, hello, Joanne. Nice to meet you. Good. Thank you for bringing Bjarne here. Because you and Joanne actually studied together.
Yes.
You did a PhD studies together in Poland, which is amazing. Now, I was thinking you might have done this when you were both, even younger than you are today. But in fact, it's only a few years ago. You were already, of course, you will be forever young. But but why did you choose to do a PhD already quite a bit in your career?
Yeah, thanks. It's a super good question. It comes out that I was sitting together with a colleague in Siemens 10 years ago, and then we was starting to discuss what was actually the explanation. If you had a satisfied customer, would that customer also be loyal? And the other question is, could we create a kind of model which could explain how to get a satisfied customer? Because that would be cool if you had a structural equation model where you said, okay, here we actually know how to create a satisfied customer, and will that satisfied customer also be loyal? And then we put another thing into it. We said, hey, is a part of the key actually employee engagement? As a meaning that if you love your job, Peter, and every morning you come and say, this is the best thing in my life, will it then have an impact into we get more satisfied customers, and then they'll be more loyal, and then we will, by the way, earn more money? And we were sitting and discussing that every time we were together, and then at one point in time we said to each other, why not make a PhD in it?
Study. And you did it.
Yes.
Well, congratulations. And that's why we now know you as Doctor. So that's amazing. Well, and thanks again to Joanne for bringing you here. We're very happy with that. And with that, I want to thank you one final time for joining us here, to you for inspiring us in the second Learning from Leisure sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.